One parent takes the toy away and says, "That's what happens when you don't listen." The other kneels down and says, "You're upset. Let's figure this out together." Different reactions, same situation. Which one actually helps the child grow? Strict parenting discipline says kids need firm rules and quick consequences to learn respect. Gentle discipline says kids need connection and understanding to feel safe enough to change. But this isn't just about parenting styles. It's about what our kids actually carry with them later in life. Strict discipline often sounds like, if you don't eat your dinner, no dessert, because I said so. You break a rule, there's a consequence. End of story. It's clear, it's direct, but it usually ends the conversation instead of starting one. Gentle discipline sounds like, what's going on that made you throw your food? Let's talk about how that choice affected someone else. I'm here, but I'm still holding the boundary. It centers emotions, but sometimes it leaves kids unsure about where the line actually is. There's research behind both. Strict parenting can lead to short-term obedience, but often at the cost of long-term trust. Gentle parenting builds emotional intelligence, but it doesn't always result in cooperation. What works best? It's not a rigid system. It's what researchers call authoritative parenting, where expectations are clear and connection stays intact. It's worth repeating. Discipline isn't about control, it's about guidance. And guidance doesn't mean giving kids what they want. It means helping them understand what's expected and what happens when they step outside that. New parents especially are bombarded with advice that swings to extremes. Never raise your voice. Don't let your child win. But parenting isn't a competition. You're not trying to win. You're trying to raise a kid who trusts you, respects you, and eventually learns to manage themselves without you. Most parents don't live in either extreme. We're not always calm. We're not always firm. We're often somewhere in the middle, especially on the hard days. One day you're grounded and present. The next day, you're raising your voice over socks on the floor. Not because you're inconsistent, because you're human. And your kid is too. When your kid pushes back, what do you usually do? Do you shut it down quickly? Do you over-explain until you're both exhausted? Or do you take a breath and try to respond, not react? This isn't about choosing sides. It's about asking yourself, what does my discipline style teach my child about how to handle stress, failure, or conflict? There's a space in between the extremes. It's not soft. It's not harsh. It's just clear. You hold the boundary. You stay steady. You let your child feel what they feel without letting it change what needs to happen. Simple? Maybe. Easy? Definitely not. Because clarity takes energy, and most of us are already running on fumes. Every time your child lashes out, there's a question behind it. Am I still safe with you when I mess up? How we answer that, through our tone, our posture, our presence, teaches them what to expect from the world. Do they learn that mistakes are punishable, or that mistakes are part of life, and they can face them without being shamed? That's not about being gentle or strict. That's about being real and being consistent. Let's get out of the abstract for a second. Your child is screaming in the back seat. They wanted nuggets. You got tacos. You're already late. The baby's crying. You haven't eaten since breakfast. What do? You could threaten. You could cave. You could snap. You could breathe. None of it's perfect. But every choice tells your child something about how power works, how emotions are handled, and how relationships survive tension. Here's another one. Your kid talks back. Not playful, disrespectful, sharp, and it stings a little more than you expected. You want to shut it down, fast, because you were never allowed to speak that way. But what if you paused, just long enough to ask, where's this really coming from? That's not letting them off the hook. That's teaching them to look at the hook, pattern interruption, not because they get away with it, but because you're showing them how to check themselves before things escalate. Sometimes a firm boundary said with calm energy is more powerful than yelling. And sometimes empathy needs to come with a very real consequence. It's not one size fits all. It's moment by moment, and it's exhausting. But it matters, because discipline doesn't just shape behavior. It shapes memory. Later on, your kid won't remember every rule. They'll remember how they felt when they messed up. Scared, ashamed, or still loved. Even in the mess, that memory becomes their internal voice. Their inner script when they fail, get rejected, lose control. And that script is hard to rewrite. When they lose a job, get ghosted, or disappoint someone, will they spiral because they expect punishment? Or will they pause, reflect, and recover because they were shown how? You don't need to have all the answers, but the tone you set now becomes the tone they carry later, not just in how they treat others, in how they treat themselves. As your kid gets older, things change, fast. What worked at 4 years old won't work at 10, and what worked at 10 will definitely get rolled eyes at 14. But a lot of us keep reaching for the same tools, even when they stop working. We raise our voice, take something away, repeat ourselves 3 times, and when that doesn't work, we take it personally. We think, they're being defiant. They don't respect me. They used to listen. What happened? Here's Here's what happened. They grew, and we forgot to grow with them. Discipline can't be frozen in time. It has to evolve, and not just based on age, but on what your child needs in that moment. Because one-size parenting creates one of two things: a kid who shuts down, or a kid who pushes back harder. Let's say your 11-year-old refuses to do homework. You threaten to take away their tablet for a week. They shrug. Whatever. Now what? You've just escalated to a punishment they don't care about, and the whole thing becomes a standoff. But what if you paused? Not to go soft, but to go smarter. Instead of reacting, you look at the bigger picture. Are they overwhelmed? Behind? Disconnected from the work? Is this about math? Or is it about feeling like they're already failing before they start? Discipline isn't just about stopping behavior. It's about understanding what's behind it. Here's the truth. Kids don't wake up thinking, how can I make my parents' life harder today? They react to stress. They react to disconnection. They react to feeling powerless in a world they don't fully understand yet. And yes, sometimes they test limits. That's their job. But it's our job to respond in a way that teaches, not just corrects. You can be firm without being cold. You can be warm without being walked on. You can say, I'm not okay with how you just spoke to me, without turning it into a lecture or a punishment spiral. That kind of emotional flexibility, it's not weak. It's not giving in. It's actual leadership. Think about the people you respect most in your own life. Were they unpredictable, harsh, dismissive, or were they clear, calm, and honest? Even when they were disappointed in you. That's the kind of presence kids remember. And eventually, that's the voice they internalize when they mess up in their own lives. But if your discipline never adapts, if it's always about control or always about avoiding conflict, your child learns to either fake it, fight it, or shut down completely. And when that happens, communication breaks. Trust this out. And parenting starts to feel like managing behavior instead of building a relationship. So the question isn't just, am I being too strict? Or am I being too gentle? The real question is what I'm doing helping my child grow? Because if it's not, then it's time to try something different. Not out of failure, out of awareness. Parenting is one of the few roles where changing your approach doesn't make you inconsistent. It makes you wise. There's no perfect way to parent, no single strategy that works in every situation, no book, expert, or podcast that fully knows your kid the way you do. But one thing holds true. Discipline is never just about behavior. It's about relationship. It's about what your child learns about themselves and about you every time things go wrong. So ask yourself, when your kid is at their worst, how do you show up? Not just when they're behaving, not when they're calm, but when they're storming, shutting down, pushing every button you have. That's the moment that matters. Because discipline isn't just a response to misbehavior. It's a message. I still see you. I still expect more from you. And I'm still here. Gentle parenting without boundaries becomes chaos. Strict parenting without connection becomes fear. What kids need, what most of us needed growing up, is a model of what it looks like to stay steady in the mess. Not perfect, just steady. So if you've ever felt like you're doing this wrong, take a breath. You're probably doing more right than you think. And if you've ever wondered, am I being too soft, too harsh, too reactive? Just remember, the fact that you're asking these questions means you care enough to grow. That's the kind of parent your kid will remember. Not the one who never made mistakes, but the one who learned from them and showed them how to do the same. Now it's your turn. What kind of discipline did you grow up with? How has that shaped the way you parent now? Drop it in the comments. No judgment, just honesty. Let's make this a space where parents can actually learn from each other without all the noise. Because if we want to raise emotionally healthy kids, it starts with emotionally honest conversations like this one.